So, um, ever hear about an animal that, well, sounds more like myth than reality?
You mean the Saola?
Exactly, the Saola, often called the Asian unicorn. And what's incredible is it was only discovered in 1992.
1992, that's astonishingly recent in biological terms.
Right. And even then, it was vanishingly rare. Now it's so seldom seen, it feels...
Almost legendary. Yeah.
And you're here because, well, you want the essential stuff, the fascinating knowledge, without getting bogged down.
And the core question, surrounding this spectral creature is pretty stark, actually. Has the Saola completely vanished, or is there still a chance it's hiding out there?
Deep in the Annamite Mountains, right? Vietnam and Laos.
Exactly. It's a truly remote place, really challenging terrain, kind of a final holdout for unseen things.
Well, that question's just gotten a jolt of new info, thanks to some pretty cutting-edge science.
Ah, you're talking about the new cell paper.
That's the one. We're diving deep into that study today. For the very first time, researchers have actually mapped the Saola's entire genetic code.
Which is a huge deal. It was a big international effort, wasn't it? Denmark, Vietnam.
Yeah, several countries involved. A major collaboration.
So our goal today, I guess, is pretty straightforward.
Right. To unpack what this new genetic research tells us about the Saola. Its past, its present.
And crucially, what the future might hold. What are the possibilities now?
Okay, so let's get into it. The Saola. Just learning about it feels like uncovering a secret, doesn't it?
It really does.
The last confirmed sighting in the wild was 2013.
Think about that. Almost a decade with no definitive proof.
And yet the search goes on. There's this persistent hope. I saw a quote from Yin Nguyen Quoc Dung in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. What did she say?
He basically captured that feeling, saying something like, while they can't definitively say it's still out there, there are some signs and indications that still give us hope.
Signs and indications.
Wow.
Well, it's tantalizing, isn't it? That's the puzzle.
It is. And for years, trying to save them was really hampered by just not knowing enough, especially genetically.
Exactly. A lack of fundamental data, which is why this new study is, well, monumental, a real step forward.
So how do they even get the genetic data if the animals are so hard to find?
Right, that's the clever part. They managed to piece it together by analyzing tiny fragments, samples from Saola remains found in hunters' communities.
Wow, just from fragments. That sounds painstaking.
Oh, incredibly painstaking. But they did it. They generated 26 complete genomes in the end.
26. For an animal this rare.
Yeah. I mean, getting even one high-quality genome would have been amazing. So 26 it's unprecedented, a whole new level of detail.
Okay, 26 genomes. That must have just blown the doors open, understanding-wise. So what was the headline? What's the big discovery in that genetic blueprint?
Well, the really remarkable thing, the big surprise, was finding that the Saola isn't just one single group.
Oh.
It's actually two distinct populations. And they have considerable genetic differences, as the paper puts it.
Two separate populations. How long have they been distinct?
The genetic analysis points to a split sometime between 5,000 and 20,000 years ago.
Wow, that's a long time,
Wow.
millennia. So this was completely unknown before.
Completely unknown. It just shows how much we're still learning, especially with genomics revealing this kind of hidden diversity.
So why is finding these two distinct groups, why is that so critical? What does it change?
It's crucial because it fundamentally changes how we have to think about the species' genetics, its overall variation, and its conservation needs.
Right.
Like Janice Garcia-Errol, the lead author, explained, this separation means the total genetic variation isn't all in one pot. It's spread across these two groups.
Right. Each group has its own unique genetic history, sort of.
Precisely. They've been on slightly different paths.
Okay, two separate paths. Did the research tell us anything about how they were doing historically? Like population size?
It did, yeah. The genetics suggest both populations have actually been declining since the last ice age.
Since the Ice Age. Wow.
Yeah. Their estimates suggest the total number probably hasn't been above maybe 5,000 individuals in the last 10,000 years.
So even before all the recent pressures, deforestation, hunting, they were already kind of vulnerable.
Seems that way, facing long-term ecological challenges.
Okay, that paints a sobering picture. But you mentioned something important earlier, that the two populations lost different genetic diversity. Why is that distinction so important?
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting for conservation. Because they lost different bits of diversity, it means each group now holds unique genetic information the other one lacks.
Okay.
Genis Garcia Errol put it really well. He said, the genetic variation lost in each population complements the other. So if you mix them, they could compensate for what the other is missing.
Ah, I see. It's like one group lost a specific tool from their genetic toolbox, and the other group lost a different tool.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
But if you bring them together, you get a more complete set again.
Exactly that. A more complete toolbox.
So this surprise division, these two groups, it might actually hold the key to their survival. That's quite a twist.
It's a fascinating and potentially hopeful twist, yeah.
So what does this mean practically for conservation efforts on the ground?
Well, connecting the genetics to strategy, the researchers ran models simulating different scenarios. Their findings strongly suggest the best shot, the best chance for the species' long-term survival probably lies in setting up a captive breeding program.
Okay.
But specifically one that strategically mixes individuals from these two distinct populations.
A genetic rescue, basically.
Yeah.
Has that worked for other animals?
It has shown promise, yeah. This kind of approach, genetic rescue, has been important for other highly endangered species.
Right. So the models, do they give any idea of how many animals you'd need to start something like that to make it viable?
They did provide some guidance there. They estimate that bringing together at least a dozen Saolas.
Just 12.
At least 12, yeah. Ideally, representing both genetic groups, bringing them together to found a breeding program could offer a decent chance of long-term survival.
A decent chance?
Yeah, and Rasmus Heller, another author, he highlighted that similar programs, ones that really factor in the genetics, have been crucial in preventing other extinctions.
Okay, that sounds hopeful, a potential plan. But we keep coming back to this, don't we? The massive elephant, or rather, Saola, in the room. Finding them.
Yeah.
And that huge, remote, difficult landscape you mentioned, that's still the biggest hurdle.
Right, absolutely. It raises the critical question, how on earth do you locate an animal that's so incredibly rare, so elusive?
Yeah.
But the encouraging news is this new genomic information, it actually offers some potentially game-changing tools for that part too.
Really? How so?
Now that they have the complete genetic blueprint, the full sequence, researchers have a much, much more powerful toolkit, as they put it, for detecting even tiny traces of Saola DNA in the environment.
Oh, you mean like eDNA, environmental DNA, analyzing water samples and
Exactly. Water sources, soil, maybe even, get this, analyzing the blood meals inside leeches found in their habitat.
Leeches. Seriously. Wow. So this detailed genetic map makes those detection methods way more effective.
Precisely. Mianduklu explained it well that the complete genome gives them a much larger toolkit to spot those elusive DNA fragments. It's like upgrading from a basic search engine to a super specific, high-powered one for their genetic signature.
That's clever. A really smart application of the tech. Okay, what about the really futuristic ideas? The study mentioned genetic de-extinction technologies. Is that even on the table here?
It's theoretical, certainly, more for the distant future, perhaps.
Yeah.
But Rasmus Heller did suggest that, if those technologies advance significantly, if recreating a species like the Saola ever became genuinely feasible.
A big if.
A very big if. But if it did, then the detailed understanding of their genetic variation from the study would be absolutely invaluable. You'd need it to try and establish a genetically healthy, self-sustaining population.
Okay, so even if the worst happens, if they can't find any living Saolas now, this research might still matter hugely down the road. That's quite a thought. A long-term backup plan, sort of.
It is a thought-provoking perspective, yeah. But, and this is important, we need to keep a realistic outlook on the immediate situation.
Right. Feet on the ground.
Exactly. Despite the potential that genetics offers, Heller himself expressed, considerable doubt about actually finding living Saolas now.
Really? Even with the new tools?
Yeah. Decades of intense searching haven't turned them up definitively. It suggests that if there is a population still out there, it's likely extremely small and incredibly hard to find.
That's sobering. A tough reminder of just how hard this kind of conservation is. Yeah. The science offers a path, maybe?
But only if there are animals to walk that path.
Yeah. The science gives us the blueprint, like you said.
But that crucial first step, rediscovery, is still this enormous, formidable hurdle.
Okay. So bringing this all together then, this deep dive into the new Saola genome study. it's given us a couple of really key insights, hasn't it?
I think so.
First, this surprising discovery. Two distinct Saola populations, genetically different, each holding unique bits of the puzzle.
Right, that hidden diversity.
And second, the modeling that suggests, look, maybe the best hope now is a captive breeding program that carefully combines these two groups.
Yeah.
That offers the most promising path forward, genetically speaking.
If they can be found.
If they can be found.
Yeah.
So you listening now have, hopefully, a much deeper grasp of the complexities here, saving a creature that's barely known to the world.
And it really leaves you with this final, maybe slightly unsettling thought, doesn't it? Even with all this amazing advanced genetic knowledge we now have, the actual survival of this extraordinary animal still hangs by a thread. It hinges on this incredibly difficult, maybe impossible task of rediscovery. So what does that ongoing struggle to just find the Saola tell you about the immense challenges of conservation in these remote, threatened places? And, what's the real role, the real impact of cutting-edge science in this race against time, especially when the clock might already be ticking very, very close to zero?